You are listening to Down Home. Some of our listeners might remember a young Nova Scotian named Gary Beals taking the Canadian Idol stage by storm back in 2003. Showcasing his homegrown talent, he was able to launch a music career with a self-titled album in 2004. This was followed by his second album called The Rebirth Of in 2009. Gary joins the Down Home podcast this week to talk about his inspiration for his third album titled Bleed My Truth.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
Welcome to Down Home, the Nova Scotian experience from two black men. I'm Derek Wise, and as always, we have Jay Jones.
What's happening?
And our guest this week is Nova Scotian recording artist Gary Beals. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing good.
Awesome. I have to admit, we actually have at least one thing in common. My family is from the Cherry Brook area.
Oh, last name?
Wise.
Wise.
W. Wise.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Over Lake Loon, maybe.
Lake Loon Road, exactly right, my friend.
There you go.
So I didn't spend a lot of time in the Cherry Brook area because I grew up with my mother's family over in Halifax, but I spent enough time in the area to kind of get a feel for the community.
Right.
So to start off, why don't you talk a little bit about growing up in Cherry Brook and how that maybe impacted your love for music?
Oh, gosh. Growing up in Cherry Brook. Well, the church was the center of the community, which is mostly the case in a lot of communities back home, the Black communities. So the impact of music first started from singing in church, gospel music. I grew up singing in church, and I fell in love with music from singing in church, and then just my parents. You know, a lot of music would be played throughout the house. My parents, my mother, my father, they were lovers of soul music, so they played a lot of those classic soul artists. So I fell in love with the soul music, the feeling of it. I love me some Otis Redding, some Al Green, some Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight. So those are some of my influences. And so even now, today, when I listen to music, like it just puts me back, reminds me of my childhood growing up. And then, my brothers, they loved, the 90s R&B. So that's when I was kind of introduced. I'm the youngest, so introduced to 90s R&B music. So many influences, so many inspirations come from those genres of music.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we both remember the 90s. Oh my goodness, man. That was a great time for R&B and like that new jack swing type music. Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
That music never dies.
No, you're right. My daughter loves it.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not, right?
Yeah. So like a small Black community steeped in the church, from experience, I know how conservative our community can be down home, small C conservative. Did you feel once you started getting that success from your music career, did you feel that appreciation coming from down home? Because I know they're not very accepting of the LGBTQ plus community. I know.
I mean, I've always felt a sense of, I guess, pride and support from my community. Always, from before singing on Canadian Idol, which most people probably know me from, to just singing locally throughout different communities and in the church. I've always felt that support and that, the sense of pride. But I struggled internally with my sexuality, and it was really conversations that were not had, amongst, my family and also the community as well. And maybe because it's a taboo topic, I think, people don't really understand it, or they didn't understand it at that time. So it's just something that we didn't talk about. And then, we're so heavily influenced by religion within the Black community, within the Black culture, that, that's not something that homosexuality is not something that, we are to be. So I did struggle with that internally. Thankfully, I no longer struggle with it. And I'm in a different space right now, and it feels good. And just to be able to have those conversations with so many of my friends, so many of my family members, my relationships have really strengthened. They've deepened through being able to lead my truth and express who it is that I am. But yeah, it's just, just understanding and having those conversations. I read a quote earlier this week. It said, healthy relationships come through uncomfortable conversations, having uncomfortable conversations. And that's so true.
Yeah. And being vulnerable is really important to that. And, as Black men, sometimes we're always taught to be so strong and to sort of mask what we're feeling emotionally. So we never quite come to those honest conversations because we feel it is taboo to have those.
Yeah.
So to reach, it's honorable to be strong, but if you don't have that vulnerability, you really don't have that power. That's what I find I've been learning as you get older.
Yeah, so true. I mean, one of the things that I've learned throughout this process of creating my album and releasing my album is, my superpower is vulnerability. Vulnerability really is my superpower. And that was one of the things that I've held back for so long, is being vulnerable. And you see the growth, you see the change, you see the healing through being vulnerable. And it is okay to express whatever it is you're feeling. It's okay to express that. So I bask in every emotion. I don't sit in it for a long period of time, but I allow it to, just seep its way out on its own.
Now, with that being said, you had a little bit of a hiatus in your music career. Was that a time to sort of self-reflect and sort of come to terms with these things that you were sort of felt you had to avoid for so long?
Yeah, I mean, it really was a chance for me to just get to know me, to embrace my own self. It had been 11 years since I've released any type of original material. My second album came out in 2009. It was called The Rebirth Of. And really at that time, I really wanted it to be like where I can really just express myself. That's why it was called The Rebirth Of. But I guess I didn't have that mindset. I didn't have the courage to really show up as myself. So I had to step back and do some internal work. I had to do some healing, self-discovery, self-reflection, and just discover and embrace parts of myself. And through that embracement of myself is when I started to fall back in love with music again. I lost passion for music because I was just like, I didn't feel that my music was authentic. It wasn't genuine because I was being myself, but I wasn't being myself wholeheartedly. So it was really important for me to step back. And I was like, if I don't do music again, it's fine that I don't do music again because I really had lost that passion. But then when I started to embrace myself and accept parts of myself, that's when I fell back in love with music again. I was inspired by listening to other artists and seeing other artists perform. And then that's when I tapped back in and that's how I, started creating this album.
The industry, have you found that the industry kind of puts you in a box? Like it tells, like my brother-in-law is in the industry as well. And one of the conversations I had with him is that, if you meet with certain people, certain producers or whatnot, they always try and put you into a certain box, a certain category that might not fit you. As a young or a Black man, a Black Canadian in the industry, have you found that they were trying to put you in this box?
I guess it's almost like part of the culture, in a sense. I don't know if it was like it was almost like subliminal, where, you know, you just kind of ride along with what is being done and how the industry works. So I don't know if, you know, a lot of times people aren't even consciously aware of, you know, their actions or their behaviors or what they're actually doing or saying. It just, we've gotten used to a way of how the industry works. But for me, yeah, I mean, like the producers, the industry folk that I had worked with, it was just, I guess, in terms of my sexuality, it was like the elephant in the room. Nobody talked about it. And it was just that. So we just kind of rode along with it and nobody said anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of weird because it's just like, okay, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, well, no, I'm not here sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, you also during your hiatus, you were able to take a trip to South Africa. I read and you talked a little bit about it and how it was sort of life-changing and very inspirational. Was that sort of a catalyst as well to maybe get you back into music after taking a little bit of a break?
Actually, it was my trip to Hawaii that was the catalyst in terms of me getting back to writing and creating and releasing original material. In 2017, for my birthday, because I generally travel for my birthday, I decided to take a trip. And I generally travel with a group of people, like a group of friends. And so this time I was like in a transitional period. And so I decided to take a trip alone by myself. And I had never, ever been to Hawaii. So that's a spot that I wanted to go to. So I went to Hawaii by myself, an unfamiliar space. And yeah, that's when I kind of I really started doing the work, the self-discovery work. I remember I went there for a week, and the first 2 days, it was kind of odd. It was weird. And I found myself, you know, just kind of like shedding tears and sometimes not even understanding why I was crying. But I think it was almost like just a purge was happening and just lots of healing was happening. And that's when I really started to just tap into who I always was and just and embrace parts of myself. And that was the catalyst of how this album came about. I came back from Hawaii. I just felt refreshed. I felt renewed. And yeah, I started looking for producers. And then I landed on this producer, Loesch. We were just supposed to write or create 2 tracks together. It worked so organically that I was just like, Loesch, you have to do this full album. And yeah, the full album happened working with him. But South Africa, that was, I took that trip in 2009, and that was in between writing the album. We had almost been done writing the album, and when I came back, we wrote the last song, which was Blood Red Roses, because when I went to South Africa, I fell in love with Afro beats, and it was just such an inspirational trip and very empowering as a Black individual to, you know, kind of just step into my Blackness, because here in North America, there's so many subliminal messages. There's so many, just in terms of psychological conditioning that happens as a Black people that we're not even really conscious about, you know, when you watch the news, when you watch different shows, and it kind of shapes the behavior of how people portray or perceive us, and also how we even perceive ourselves. So I really fell in love really with my Blackness, just seeing Black people there and how welcoming and how happy and how joyous they were and how they would interact with each other and their connections. And yeah, I mean, I came back with a deeper appreciation of my Black skin, a deeper appreciation for Black people, and yeah, just to embrace and encourage and empower, because I think really that's what we need more of. We always hear these negative images or see these negative images and negative messages, that we need more positivity, and that's the only way we will rise. I mean, it's okay for us to look back at where we came from, but it's also where are we trying to go and how can we get there? And if we keep steeping ourselves into this trauma, then, you know, how can we really grow from that?
Yeah, it's hard to break the chain. We got to really break the chain. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
South Africa, I mean, it was just amazing. Like, you know, I remember, I mean, I'm a very emotional person, so I just remember crying there all the time, but it was almost like I was connecting with my ancestors. And then just the different excursions that we did, from the culture tours and just learning about the different tribes in South Africa, and the safari tour and hiking Table Mountain in Cape Town, which was absolutely amazing. Like a 3-hour hike, but once I made it to the top, it was just an exhilarating feeling. So yeah, I mean, it was a really amazing experience. Yeah.
The concept of celebrating ourselves, it's something that's lost in our community sometimes, isn't it? Yeah.
It sure is. And that's why I had written Blood Red Roses. Blood Red Roses is really about us celebrating us, celebrating us as kings and queens, celebrating our Blackness and understanding our strength, our resilience, and who we are as a people. You know, celebrating my own self, because sometimes we don't celebrate ourselves. I pat myself on the back so many times. I don't need validation from anybody, because I give myself the self-encouragement that I need to move forward. And so not only do I celebrate and try and empower others, I do the same for myself.
Excellent, man. Now, you just recently released an album back in October, I believe it was.
Yeah.
It was actually released on Derek's birthday.
Yeah.
October 23rd.
No.
All right. On the 23rd. It was released 2 days before my birthday.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
So you guys are in the same week.
Our paths are intersecting here, man.
Yeah.
We have more in common than we think.
Yeah.
Cherry Brook in the house. Now, it's Bleed My Truth. Yes,
that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounded like you've taken quite a journey from sort of coming from the Black community that you came to Toronto. You were in the Canadian Idol contest, got some recognition from there. So, and then sort of dealing with your own internal demons and as such, to sort of come where you are to actually, you know what, this is me. I'm stepping into my truth. This is me. And you actually have a song which I listened to the other day, and I found it very powerful. Me for Me. Right. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration of the album?
Yeah, I mean, the inspiration of the album just came from me just bleeding my truth, stepping into the truth of who I am, walking in my truth, embracing myself. And the album has themes of love, you know, self-love, platonic love, romantic love. It has themes of sexuality and and just coming to terms with self and realizing the power within. And Me for Me was the first song that we wrote for the album. That was the first time that I met up with the producer. And it almost felt like a kind of like a blind date. So we went in and I just expressed myself, and through expressing myself, we came up with Me for Me, which has kind of so many layers to it, because it's also about relationship as well, and just showing up as yourself in a relationship, but also like just embracing and accepting yourself for who you are too. So it's kind of various meanings to it. Yeah.
That's great. And also a very good message, you know, to come to terms with yourself and celebrating yourself, like Derek said, you know, it's very important.
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you have any other anything else before we wrap up? Anything coming up that you want to tell us about?
What do I have coming up? I'm releasing a live performance video of a song on the album called Hands, and then probably do some other creative stuff for the album. During this process, I've enjoyed doing a lot of videos. I've done 10 videos now for this album. I've done six music videos, 4 live performance videos, and then I did a documentary as well.
Oh wow!
So I've really enjoyed just finding creative things to do to help support the album. And I say, like, the album is not just music; it's also about having conversations because of the various themes within the album, and that's really what inspired me to do the documentary. And the documentary is just me sitting down with 13 individuals, a very diverse diverse group of people from ages 5 to 84, and just asking questions about love and hearing their experiences about love, their insight on love. So it was great. We shot that in like one day. And yeah, it was great just sitting down. But so I'm looking forward to finding other creative ways to also support the album. And then I'll be working on a new project. So I'm excited about that. Not sure what that's going to look like, but I'm really excited to start to get that creative process flowing.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you got you've expanded your sort of repertoire. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
documentary and sort of really showing who you are as an artist too.
Yeah,
not just through voice, but everything that you learned and to tell your truth along the way, man. That's good. You're very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it really has impacted so many other areas in my life because I played small by, hiding myself, hiding my sexuality. I really played small. And now, I'm unapologetic in showing up, and also to be a voice, to be vocal and have these conversations, whether people agree or disagree with it. It's okay. You know what I mean? Because I may have opinions about many different things. I may not agree with different things, but we still can live in one world and be of peace and be of love. And so that's just kind of the message and the vibe that I wish to spread.
Yeah, I have to say, Gary, when I saw you on Canadian Idol, I had this deep sense of pride, seeing this brother from Nova Scotia, this young brother from Nova Scotia doing his thing. And I'm feeling that pride right now. You're doing your thing, man. You're doing your thing. It's awesome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
it is awesome. Jay Jones, take us out.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I reached out because you know my cousin very well. You actually came to one of my shows many years ago.
In Toronto.
It was at the Winchester when I was in a funk band called the Breakdown, and he brought you along. And when we were looking at guests, I was, we're always trying to look for someone from Nova Scotia,
right,
especially Black. So you popped into my head, and that's why I reached out. And thank you for being kind enough to take the time and share your inspiring story, man. It's really important.
For reaching out. I appreciate it. Anytime I'm here. Cool. Yeah, I appreciate the support.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
You have been listening to Down Home. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, yeah. On a high plateau, from the one down below to the future of the funk, getting lost in the flow. Contact with the spot maquettes. Now it's time to flex.
The song Breaking New Ground from the Breakdown.
As you reach your next phase, laying it all on the line. New trails start to blaze. It's a fire inside. A brand new path breaking down the sum to one. Feeling free, I just laugh.